You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything. Westholme is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Learn more at westholme.com.
Hello, welcome to Japan Eats. I'm your host, Kotoyama, a food writer and the director of the New York Japanese Culinary Academy, which promotes a deeper understanding of Japanese cuisine in America. We are broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York. This show is all about Japanese food and food culture. We see sushi at every day in the supermarket, but what is beyond sushi? We hear dashi ramen izakaya, but what exactly are they? Japanese food is still mystery for many people, and I try to demystify it in this program with my good guests. My guest today is Bob Brodsky, who is the executive chef partner of RPM Restaurants based in Chicago. After working at Michelin-starred restaurants in Chicago, Bob joined the team at RPM in 2019. Now he oversees multiple restaurants in Chicago, Las Vegas, and Washington, D.C., reflecting his talent in managing popular restaurants in diverse genres. In addition to Bob's profound experience in cooking seafood, he's now one of the most knowledgeable chefs about Japanese Wagyu beef in the US. So today we'll discuss Bob's recent visit to Wagyu farms in Japan, how Wagyu is different from regular beef from a chef's point of view, why Wagyu is so appealing to highly skilled chefs like Bob who have diverse options of meat to choose from, the best way to taste Wagyu, and much more. But before we start, Japan Eats is available on the Heritage Radio Network website, as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify as a podcast. So please go to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whichever you listen to, and subscribe to Japan Eats. And please write a review. We truly appreciate your feedback. Now let's start a conversation with Bob Brodsky. Hello, Bob. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Right. So first of all, to get to know you, you have very interesting background. So where are you from? And what did you eat when you grew up?
I'm from Pittsburgh originally. Grew up in the suburbs, kind of a classic middle-class suburban family. You know, we did a lot of chain restaurants growing up and Red Lobsters and Olive Gardens and things like that. But my family always cooked at home all the time. And those are kind of some of my fondest memories as a kid.
That's nice. Yeah, people talk about those sorts of family, dining out. That sounds like a very important occasion, depending on where you go. But I think the gathering and memories, I think it's the foundation of successful chefs like you are.
I think it's super important for people to come together. And, you know, I look at dining out as a fun event, even with my 3 little kids now. For us, going out to eat is a big deal. And I want them to be excited about it, as excited as I was when I was a kid.
Right. And at home, I'm sure the 3 kids get the best meal you can think of as a kid. So that's awesome. So how did you get into cooking beyond actual dining individual?
It's kind of all I've ever wanted to do. I've always had an interest in it. My mother's college roommate has a son who was probably 10 or 12 years older than I am. And when I was 14, I had to do a job shadow. So I spent the day with, his name's Patrick, spent the day with Patrick in a little lunch cafe outside of Pittsburgh in Frick Park, and kind of washed dishes and was in the kitchen and loved every second of it and really never looked back from there.
Wow, interesting. Do you want to elaborate on your impressive culinary journey afterwards? Because interestingly, before you got into Wagyu or beef overall, you have cooked a lot of seafood very professionally.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I've always been very product driven with where I wanted to work. I always wanted to be in the hardest restaurants when it comes to technique and things like that, because I wanted my learning curve to be as steep as possible so I can get as much out of it as I can. And naturally, that led me to kind of fine dining, and that led me to mostly seafood restaurants, frankly. I opened Ria in the Elysian Hotel, which is now the Waldorf in Chicago, which got 2 Michelin stars. And then I went on to the L2O team, which is a strictly seafood-based tasting menu, and a Michelin star status as well. And for me, that was kind of the basis of knowledge of all of that was what can I touch? What can I feel? What can I see? How can I learn as much as I possibly can? And it's paid dividends in my career now.
Well, sounds like you're very competitive against yourself.
I think you have to be. If you're not hard on yourself, what are we doing this for?
Right. So, by the way, what are the RPM restaurants that you manage?
So RPM Restaurants is an upscale restaurant brand from Let Us Entertain You. We have RPM Seafood, RPM Steak, RPM Italian are all under that umbrella. But we're high energy, great quality product. You're going to get fantastic service. You're going to feel like a celebrity.
Right. So, by the way, the Let Us Entertain You enterprises, that's, it's a huge corporations to provide great dining experiences through very, very many restaurants, right? Over 100, I think.
Yes, right around 100. It's one of those things that, the founder, Rich Melman, loves opening restaurants, but he always says that he gets bored very easily. So why would we open, many of one thing when we can open different concepts all the time?
That's interesting. And it's also sounds like it's a great growth space for someone like you who wants to grow and provide something great to your dining community. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun thing, too, is it doesn't have to be this Michelin-starred dining experience. We have a pizza restaurant called Pizzeria Portofino that is an absolute blast to be in. The food's incredible. It's super casual. Like, it's great to be able to, have different outlets for, different price points and different foods and lots of different things going on.
Right. Awesome. So we'll take a quick break here. And when we come back, we'll dive into the world of Wagyu beef. So please stay with us.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. In Northern Australia, there's a different approach to raising high-quality beef. West Home, based in Queensland and Northern Territory, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. They look after a sweeping stretch of territory from Brisbane to Darwin, with a climate as varied as the landscape. West Home raises Wagyu beef, but there's a saying that their real job is to grow grass, meaning that if they take care of the land, the rest will take care of itself. West Home stewards 16 million acres of rangeland guided by their natural ecosystems. West Home's team of rangeland experts and nature managers use a variety of tools to monitor and respond to the welfare of the environment, like satellites that assess grass health and on-the-ground research. Cattle are happier when they have the freedom to forage and explore. So West Home ensures that they can roam wild, foraging at will for the first 2 to 3 years of their lives. Their cows graze on native grasses like Mitchell grass, which is only found in Australia, along with dozens of other plants, herbs, and seasonal legumes. The result is signature Australian Wagyu, built on a genetic lineage tracing back to Japan and imbued with the terroir of Northern Australia and a flavor suited to complement any cuisine. West Home believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westhome.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Japan Eats on Heritage Radio Network, HRN. I'm your host, Akiko Kotayama, and my guest today is Bob Brodsky, who is the executive chef partner of RPM Restaurants based in Chicago. Okay, so let's talk about Wagyu. So what is Wagyu by definition?
Wagyu is just, Japanese beef. It's a different breed of cattle than what we get in America. And it's, frankly, leaps and bounds better than, the normal things that we serve day to day.
Right. But strictly speaking, there are like 4 different types of Japanese breeds, right?
Yes. You've got Kuroge, you've got Tajima, you've got Akuushi, and then there's one other one that is escaping me right now, but there are 4, yes.
Right. And I heard the name Wagyu was officially created only in 1944 by the Japanese government because Japanese people did not eat meat until the Meiji period, which began in the late 19th century because a long time ago in 7th century, Emperor Tenmu banned meat eating for religious reasons. He was a Buddhist. So the cattle was grown only for farming until that end of 19th century. And then gradually farmers started to develop better tasting beef for commercial purposes and based on unique Japanese breeds of those Kuroge, Akage, and Tankaku, the shorthorn, and the no horn, for four breeds. So, as a chef, what is special about Wagyu, Japanese Wagyu, compared to regular beef that you can find in the US?
Kind of everything about it is better. The meat is much cleaner. Of course, it's got a higher fat content, but it's just, the animals are cared for in a way that's different, very different than, the way they're cared for in the United States as well. And I just think it's a truly special product that if you haven't had it, it'll kind of blow you away.
Right. So the most classic impression of Japanese Wagyu is the marbling, right?
Correct.
Right. And that marbled fat, which I love, it's kind of very easy to melt. One time I put it on my hand, it melted. So it's a very different nature. What is that about?
It's just that kind of different breed of animal than what we're used to. So the fat melts at a much lower temperature, and it's tend to be, the lower the temperature that the beef would melt, is the higher prized it is in Japan. So Matsuzaka has the lowest melting point, and that's why it's the most prized of anything in Japan right now.
Interesting. Yeah, you mentioned Matsuzaka, but that's the name of the region, and there's so many different famous Wagyu producing regions. It's like a local competition, like who's the best. So,
absolutely.
Right. And so the Wagyu fat is known for higher omega-3 ratio, which is known to aid in protection against heart disease, arthritis, depression, some people say Alzheimer's, and high blood pressure, whatever. But definitely that melting point, lower melting point in your mouth, I think the mouth feels very different. What do you think as a chef?
I mean, it is so much more unctuous than, prime beef in the United States. The term melt in your mouth didn't really make sense to me until you ate Wagyu beef, if that makes sense. It's just one of those things that, it's truly a luxurious experience every single time we get to use the product.
Right. And they say there's a special scent called the Wagyu. It's a pleasant scent coming out of the meat. So do you know what it is?
I mean, for me, the way we just describe it is that it's clean. It's just this clean scent that you can just tell it's, of the utmost quality.
Right. Interesting. I think that the smell comes out more because it melts at the lower temperature, so you can actually smell it than, Japanese, I don't know, the American dry aged beef, because it's kind of drier. But Japanese Wagyu is like coming out of the bottle of olive oil or something. It melts
Absolutely.
away. Right. Yeah, and I heard as a Wagyu, if you really smell it, it smells like a peach or coconut or some like very, very fruity scent. So listeners, if you get to smell a Wagyu beef and the fat, maybe you can just get this Wagyu, just a coconut or peach or some very fruity scent. So Wagyu is noticeably more expensive than regular beef. Why is that?
There's a lot of factors. The main one being is that there's less animals in Japan than there are in the United States. So, and they're also grown in a very specific way. They're older than American cattle. They take more care. So kind of the entire process of raising the animal costs a lot more money. Plus, it also needs to be shipped across the ocean to get here. So there's certainly a heavier price tag, but we find that it's absolutely worth it.
Right. Yeah. So the real estate and the feed and care, labor cost. And one time I spoke to someone from the Wagyu farm in Matsuzaka region, which you mentioned earlier. So this gentleman is very specialized in growing the best Wagyu beef, and he treats his cows like his daughters, and he cries when he has to slaughter his daughters. So that's a very different mindset, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can just tell that the animals are treated with such utmost respect and care. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Right. And Wagyu in Japan are registered, and the meats are graded. And I saw they have a stamp, like DNA stamp on their nose. So every cattle is recognized as a kind of like DNA. So, and they're all graded. So could you tell us about the grading system of Japanese Wagyu?
Absolutely. So the cows get a letter, and then they also get a BMS score. So the letter would be, the yield or, the high quality yield you'd get off of the animal. So you get A, B, or C. And then the BMS score would be up to 12 would be the highest. So kind of anywhere in between that, A5, BMS 12 would be kind of the cream of the crop, the best of the best that you can possibly get. And then the grading kind of goes from there.
So what is the BMS scale?
It's the beef marbling score.
Okay, so how fatty and it's like a lace, right? Like very beautiful marbles. That's the more
Exactly.
fat, right? Interesting. Okay, and by the way, the higher like A5 is always the best. Well, some people may prefer like sashimis, Japanese sushi. Nakami is otoro, chutoro, and nakami, like tuna, bluefin tuna. What's your preference, like opinion about which grades should be the best?
I think, for us in our stores, a lot of times people are going to get very, very small portions, and they're going to want something that they've never had before or kind of blows their expectations out of the water. So for us, A5 BMS 10 to 12 is what we shoot for in that sense. But for me, if I'm going to eat a larger steak, frankly, I think an A4 is a fantastic steak where you can actually eat it and not kind of, be overwhelmed by how rich it is.
Right. Maybe like a chutoro, bluefin tuna.
Exactly.
Right. Interesting. By the way, Japanese Wagyu is not something you eat like the big steak, like a tomahawk or like a porterhouse, because it's too fatty, I think, right?
Correct.
You said it's heavy. Right. So what's the regular portion size that you serve when it comes to Wagyu at your restaurants?
We sell it by the ounce. A minimum of 2 ounces. Anything smaller than that kind of isn't really worth it, and we want to provide that value. So we'll do anything from a 2-ounce portion to, if somebody wants a 34-ounce ribeye, we'll do that for them as well.
Right. So basically, it's like a foie gras kind of. You can't eat too much, but to really appreciate.
That being said, some people still do.
I don't blame them. I could just one night. It's a special occasion, so you can do it.
Exactly.
Right. And actually, though, I have a lighter feeling after I like Wagyu because of I think cleaner fat and
Exactly right.
right,
Exactly.
omega-3. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. And last October, you visited authentic Wagyu farms in Japan. And on your website, rpmrestaurants.com, you have a beautiful short video about your seemingly highly impactful trip. So could you tell us about the 2 farms you visited?
The 2 farms we visited, we went to Kaneko Farms, which showcases Namiki beef, which, to be honest, we didn't even really plan on going to that farm. It's just something that kind of came up in our travels. We didn't know what we'd find there, and it was stunning. The animals were absolutely stunning compared to the other farms we've been to. Just clean and healthy, and the cows were, just meticulously maintained. You'd walk into the barn and a lot of the cows would be lying down, which is a very rare thing to see on an animal farm, just because, they have to be completely relaxed and not worried about literally anything, for the cows to be just lying down and just kind of grazing that way.
Can I be one of those? It's like ideal life to be born.
Another thing we thought was really cool is they're growing their own feed. They have corn on the farm, and they're also growing canola, the flour canola that people make canola oil from. And they say that adding the canola to the feed also lowers the melting point of the beef, which I thought was very, very cool.
Interesting. Well, is that very unique about the Kaneko farm? And not many other farms can do it, right? Because they don't grow the canola by themselves.
Exactly right. We tried the product, and I asked the guys, I said, where can I get this? And they said, you can't. And I asked why not. I said, well, we don't import to the United States. So it took me a good 6 months of, twisting their arm and a little bit of begging and pleading on my behalf. But as of right now, we're the only restaurant in the country to feature that on their menu.
Right, because it's exporting such a highly restricted item called beef. Must be very hard to register and actually get approval and ship it physically to Chicago and other places you serve. So you said a special care. I'm curious. People say crazy things about beef. The cattle needs to be relaxing all the time, so they get the massage or drink beer. And I heard it's there too. And what did you see at the Namiki farm, at the Kaneko farm for the Namiki beef?
All of that stuff can be true, but isn't necessarily true. It depends on the certain farm and certain place and all of those things. But just the animals themselves, were bigger, cleaner. Like, it was just a stunning place. I remember Brittany, who this was her first farm she's ever been to. We show up on this farm and I just look at her and I go, this is way nicer than some of the other places we've been. Not that the other places were, not great in any stretch of the imagination, but this was truly special. Just the amount of cows to people. There was only about, I think, 100 animals on that one farm. So it was a very small kind of just everything about it. It was beautiful. They're well cared for. The barns were meticulously maintained. Like I said, the animals, you could tell, were just very happy. It was just a truly special place to be.
So taste-wise, how was the beef different? Like in the Namiki beef taste, is it sweeter, or how do you describe the difference?
I think texturally it was incredible, because what you touched on earlier is exactly right, is the fat in it is like a spider web. It's these lacy, thin kind of webbing of fat that doesn't have these just like large, kind of large pockets of fat throughout the animal. Like it just ate so much cleaner and so much more unctuous and just delicate almost. And that's what really made it stand out for us.
Right. Wow. Amazing. So that's in the north, Aomori Prefecture, which is really close to Hokkaido. So, wow. So you got lucky to be able to find that very special place. It's right. Okay. So what's the other farm you visited?
So we went to Kawaguchi Farms, and they are one of the two farms that produce Sendai beef. What's different about them is they buy their cows at auction and don't grow the cows there. So they're buying cows that are 3 months old, and they're buying the best of the best. And it's in this kind of unctuous and rich farmland. They're fed rice straw from right down the road. These beautiful plains. It's right by the river. Like, there's a bird sanctuary on the property. Like, it's pretty incredible to see. Just a completely different way of growing the same animal in essence, right? Where at the Namiki beef is all genetics from one animal. That's their big story there. These guys are buying at auction. They're bringing the cows to Kawaguchi Farm, and it's just gorgeous. It's third generation family. They take great care of the animals. And it's funny to see how so many things are similar, but so many things can be different based on, where they are, how the barns are. These are more open air than the ones in Namiki are. There's more animals on the property, but again, not a crazy amount. Rice straw being the main part of their diet, where corn and canola was the main part of the Namiki diet. It's just a really cool thing to see the differences and the similarities, frankly, of the animals.
Interesting. Wow. So how do you describe the beef that you taste?
For me, I think the Sendai beef is the best one we have to be eaten raw or sashimi style or a tartare. Wow. I think that, like we talked about earlier, some of it can be too rich. The BMS scale here is right around 10, which is great, what we're getting from these guys. And I think that, raw or cooked ishiyaki style is kind of perfect for these animals.
Wow, amazing. So, yeah, I mean, it's really not unusual to have sashimi style raw beef, especially when it comes to high quality Wagyu. So, and you can probably smell the best part of the fat we discussed earlier. And I'm just looking at the Kaneko farm that you loved, the website. I don't think there's any English translation, but if you go to kaneko-farm.jp, slash division slash beef. You can see beautiful, cute cows. And it's just amazing how clean they are grown.
And what's cool there too is they also have kind of a fleet of dairy cows as well, and they have a creamery where they sell ice cream, and the ice cream is also spectacular.
Right. Okay. Wow, that's amazing. And I think you can visit and then taste actually the ice cream.
Yep.
Yeah, the handmade gelato, and they serve steak. There's a steakhouse, so sounds awesome. Right. Okay. And so you went there by the invitation from the Japanese government, right?
Correct.
Are there many visitors from outside of Japan to learn about Wagyu beef?
There aren't many. I've been very lucky that I've gotten to go twice at this point, and it's through import companies and things of that nature. So we deal with Trex a lot. They're our Wagyu importer that we love to use, and one of the companies they import from is a company called Kanimatsu. And what they do is they they set up these trips where Kanimatsu will represent and they'll send some people from the United States out to kind of see their culture and the animals and what they do and what they're so proud of, and it's incredible to see. And then usually after that, the Trex guys bring the guys from Kanimatsu to the United States, see their facilities in San Francisco. They'll come to Chicago, have dinner at the restaurant with me, and then they'll go and see Greater Omaha in Nebraska as well. So it's kind of a cool give and take when it comes to teaching other people about how different countries and different cultures kind of treat the same animal.
Right, interesting. Yeah, and also like everything else, the farmers are suffering because of the aging. It's hard to find people who can succeed the farm operation. So I heard Wagyu farms, which is more value added business out of those cattle growth business. So I heard Wagyu is becoming more focused by the Japanese government and also whole beef associations. So I think it's a very healthy directions, and everybody outside of Japan can enjoy good Wagyu farm products as well. So that's interesting. I hope more chefs can really go visit like you did at Japanese Wagyu farms and learn like what exactly it's all about. Because unless you go, probably you can't really get the sense of what it is like you did, right?
And one of the cool things too is one of the mandatory parts of the trip is you take the train to Gunma and you go to the Wagyu training academy, and they have a master butcher show you how to break down different parts of the animal that us as Americans aren't normally used to. Where in our stores, it's very easy to sell tenderloins and ribeyes and New York strips. And it's also easy for Japan to export those, but they're left with all of this other product that they're trying to find creative uses for. So it was very cool for us to see how, for instance, the zabuton cut can be incredible for sashimi, and you wouldn't need to use, a fillet or whatever whatever the easier ones are.
Interesting. Yeah, that's the Japanese mindset of mottainai. You can't waste any piece of what you're given by nature. So, yeah, I think that you kind of get the respect to all those ingredients. And also in Japan, actually, organ meat restaurants were very popular because people really found all those seemingly wasteful parts of animals can really taste good. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Right. Okay, so you serve Wagyu from the two farms in Japan, Kaneko Farm in Aomori Prefecture and a Kawaguchi Farm in Miyagi Prefecture. So how do you serve their Wagyu beef at your restaurant?
So we have a total of 4 different Wagyus on our menu, just Japanese beef. We have the Hokkaido snow beef from Chateau Uene, and we've got the Takamori drunken Wagyu on the menu as well. Those are the 4 that we do. We'll always run specials of, a tartare or a sashimi type situation. But on the menu, when it comes to cooked Wagyu, we offer it grilled over charcoal, kind of in a more Midwestern fashion. But we also offer it ishiyaki style. So sliced thin, cooked on a hot stone, finished with, aged soy sauce. It's a beautiful way to eat it. So as a guest in the restaurant, you can pick how much of it you'd like, and then we'll serve it to you one of those 2 ways.
That sounds great. Okay, and which parts and which piece, how it's prepared, is popular most at your restaurants?
The Namiki beef is the most popular one on our menu. It's both A, very special and delicious, and B, the servers love talking about the exclusivity of it, and that's a great way to get people excited about trying it.
Mm, right. Okay. And what is your favorite way to eat Wagyu personally? It doesn't have to be at the very restaurants, but if you have a good piece of Wagyu, how do you eat it yourself?
I mean, for me, it's the Ishiaki style is the best by far.
Yeah, because you can actually see how the fat melts and you smell it, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. And you also serve beef with Japanese heritage from West Home Wagyu in Australia and
Mhm.
her brand ranch in Texas. So, what type of beef are they and what unique flavors do they have, respectively?
Absolutely. So the beef from Heartburn Ranch is Beeman Ranch. Jordan Beeman's a great friend of ours. We've been using his products for years. We love the quality of it. So his is strictly Akaushi beef or red Wagyu. So it's a lot leaner than kind of the normal Japanese Wagyu you'd think of. But texturally, it's incredible. It's, it's just one of those things that it truly stands out when it comes to American Wagyu, that he's truly doing it differently, doing, not a crossbreed or anything like that. Like it's 100% true Akiyushi beef, and it's fantastic.
Interesting, because that when we say Wagyu, even in Japan, it's a majority. I think over 90% is kuroge, like
Correct.
um, black haired. So akaushi is very rare. So I'm very curious. I feel like I'm gonna try it.
You
So,
got to come see it.
right. And so, what about the West Home Wagyu in Australia?
West Home is truly special. They've taken, it's a crossbreed, but they've taken Kuroge Wagyu and crossbred it with a local cow, as well as one other animal. It's a crossbreed between three animals. And what's cool about it is they almost specifically designed this animal based on what is around and the weather conditions in Australia, in northern Brisbane, where they're located. It's amazing. What's cool about them is they have a lot. They can do everything from 4.5 to 8.9 to 9+ Wagyu. They really have. They run the gamut of something that's less marbled to something that's very marbled. The 12-ounce New York strip on our menu is 8.9 on the marbling score, and it's besides a fillet and a steakhouse, it's the number one selling steak on our menu, which is pretty fantastic.
Right, interesting. Wow. Okay, so I think the terroir of Australia and Texas can offer something beyond just regular Wagyu. So I'm sure it's very interesting for you personally as a chef to experiment different styles and flavors of Wagyu.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. And well, when it comes to food, sustainability is becoming more important for all of us. So, what are your thoughts on consuming meat?
I think that as much as possible, it's you want to be dealing with people that also care about the mission of keeping the world a happy, healthy place. So for us, it's reducing waste as much as humanly possible, as well as dealing with farmers that genuinely care for their animals and aren't wasteful in that sense either. We've also been working with um, a company that's producing something that you can add to feed that will hopefully reduce the methane levels of cattle ranches. So again, we're trying to get creative and see anything we can do to make it a much more sustainable situation.
Mm, right. So what I heard is eating beef is not by itself a cause of global issues, global, like, the environmental issues, but the way we manipulate it, how we grow the ecosystem, how we grow the beef, the meat, and then whole ecosystem. We manipulated that to make it efficient and to make money too quickly. Then that
Correct.
the whole system collapsed, and that's why environment reacted to it. So probably you have to step back and then eat healthy protein, which we need as a human, uh, as a species. So yeah, I think we cannot just talk about eating meat or not, how it's grown and how we manipulate it in the last 150 years of how we grow any protein on Earth, and also how we capture seafood as well. So, yeah, it's a big topic. Maybe we can come back and discuss it on another occasion. But
Definitely.
yeah. So, which do you prefer, cooking seafood or beef? Because you are so good at both.
I mean, for me, I love both because they're so different. Um, there's something to be said about, having a razor sharp knife and butchering fish and cooking it very, very gently. And there's also something very pleasing as well about, taking a large cut of meat and cooking it over, open fire and coal and, all of those things. Like I'm luckily in a position where I get to do both on a daily basis. And that's something that, I don't want to change.
Right. What are your kids' favorite?
They like chicken fingers. Let's say that.
Okay. That's a very neutral, very politically correct place.
Right.
Right. And I heard that your passion has been always cooking. So, however, the restaurant industry is known for its extremely hard work, mentally and physically. So, what motivates you to keep going? Like you, it's very inspiring how powerful you are.
No, I mean, I just love what I do, right? I mean, I'm in a position where I'm surrounded by all the best product on earth, whether that be Italian steak or seafood. But I also get to be surrounded by great people. And nothing makes me happier than seeing the people around me succeed, and kind of growing. And as I grow, they grow, and we all grow together. It's fantastic to be on a team where everybody pushes in the same direction. And again, like I'm my own harshest critic, and that's just who I am. And yes, it's stressful, but nothing easy is, if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be as fun.
Right. So that's the healthy ecology that to grow yourself like great beef. You create the environment of people, which I think it's foundational for everybody. So yeah, that's great. I really have to keep in mind to nurture yourself mentally and physically by surrounding yourself with good people. So what are your plans and dreams?
I mean, for me, it's to keep growing. I want to open more restaurants and make more people happy, and have happy guests and successful restaurants. And at the same time, I want to have time to hang out with my wife and my kids and watch them grow up and kind of do it all. That's my goals and dreams are to do everything.
Right. And do you have any specific genre of food that you want to try cooking?
Right now, we're working on a restaurant that'll open probably sometime next year. That we're kind of aiming for the south of France as our next concept. So a lot of people, specifically the United States, think of French food as lots of butter, lots of cream, all those Parisian dishes that everybody knows about. But for me, it's the south of France. I think is very intriguing. A lot of vegetables, a lot of beautiful olive oils, incredible seafood, herbs and spices that'll blow you away. I think it's a very fresh take on a whole cuisine that kind of gets put in a box in the United States.
Right. So it's all celebration of ingredients. So this is Japanese. I have to say it's very much in common with Japanese food. So, right. That's awesome. Right. So, well, keep me posted. And I really think that Southern France is kind of tend to be overlooked just because it's so natural. And I think in New York, people like bistro food just because of what you said. It's cleaner and more sustainable and healthier style cuisine. So, yeah, good luck. And where can we find your updates online and on social media?
My social media is Bob Broski, just my whole name. And then the restaurant is much more interesting than my social media. Would be RPM Italian, RPM Seafood, and RPM Steak.
Awesome. And also the website, rpmrestaurants.com. And well, listeners are trying to find the fun video of Japanese Wagyu because it's awesome. And of course, Bobo is there. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today, Bob. And yeah, good luck.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Right, so listeners, if you have any questions or comments about the show or suggestions for show topics or guests, please contact us at japaneats@heritageradionetwork.org or at kikokatema.com. Japan Eats is a weekly program and is always available at heritageradionetwork.org as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify as a podcast. Engineer is Liam Warner, and thanks for listening. I will see you next week.
Japan Eats is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.